Okay, we'll wait for a few more people. Feels weird to be back. Okay, a few people have joined. This is good. We'll wait a little longer just to see. Okay. Once we get a few more people, I'm going to get started. This is the first question, so I've done the submitted questions from the Discord, as usual. And if we can get done a bit early, I can actually do a few more perhaps. But some of these were real good ones. Real good ones. So for those of you that have joined now, and maybe watching this afterwards, what I would ask of you is if you're going to submit a question from a textbook, from the Edexcel textbook, can you tell me which chapter it is? So let's say if it's exercise 6E question 5. The reason is because this quality is not great. So what I would do, and I've done this for one of the later questions, is I'll screenshot the question from my online textbook. So I have the textbook, that's online PDF version. So let me show you one of the later questions. Okay, I can't. Okay, I think it was actually this one here. Okay, so I can get a really nice picture. So again, just in future, please submit the actual chapter. So if you want, you can just take a picture of chapter 6E or whatever and send it. You can, yeah. And if you need to, you can send me a message saying this is what I want to go through, and I'll put it in the stream questions thing just so we can get a better quality picture. There's a few more people joining. If you do want to submit questions, you can join the Discord. I'll post a link maybe in a bit. But for the first question we have is this one here. And we're doing part C. So this is, of course, we have triangles and we have a bunch of lengths. So we're probably using sine rule, cosine rule, and that kind of stuff. So what do we do? Well, if we look, we're trying to find out the angle x. So find x in each of the diagrams. We're finding the angle x. And it gives us a bunch of these lengths, and honestly it's a bit confusing. So what I would do is I would just try and work out anything I can. So if I look at this as an oval triangle, so the oval triangle being ABC, so let's see if I can sketch it out approximately. Boom, like that. This is A, B, and C. I have two sides and a blank spot. So it makes sense to me to try and work out some of that stuff, right? Because again, that's the triangle I have the most information on. If I look at DCB, I have only a side. If I look at ADC, I have two sides and that's it. But if you look at ABC, we have a side. This side here is 11 centimeters because it's 8.6 add 2.4. And we actually know what this angle is here. Because if you look, this is a straight line, so 180 minus 50 should give us that angle. So we actually have two lengths, sorry, and that's also 3.8, I didn't write that down, and 130 degrees. So that by far is the triangle we have the most information on. So that's why I'm picking it. So again, the small triangle here, we only have two sides. The bigger triangle, we only have a side. But this overall triangle, we have two sides and an angle, which means we can work stuff out. Now, what could we work out? Well, this, I would say, is the sine rule, because we have a side, its opposite angle, so we can find this side, or we have this side, and we can work out this angle here. Okay? So, since we're working out an angle, we should use the form that looks like this. So, sine 130 over 11 equals sine of whatever b is over 3.8. So then sine b is equal to 3.8 times sine 130 over 11. And then what I'm going to do is obviously do the inverse sine of the answer. So let me get my calculator up. Where is it? Ignore this, I was doing some stats earlier. So we have inverse sine 3.8, sine 130, close bracket, on the bottom 11, like so. Gives us an angle of 15.345 degrees. So I probably want to preserve a little bit of accuracy, so let's do 15.35 degrees. We do it to 2 dp. That's pretty accurate so far. Okay, and this is giving me marks already. Cool. I'm hoping you guys can chat. Hang on, I'm just going to check the settings because I think I may have... Okay, I see the problem. Okay. You should now be able to type, by the way. My apologies, I had that left over from a members stream I did the other day. There we are. Okay, yeah, my bad. I just realised. Ice cream, hello. Okay. I don't know what caused me to think of that, but there you go. So, are you going to the matrices question? I didn't see a matrices question, but you may have sent it a bit late, so I'm starting from the top and working my way down. But I will be focusing on, ideally, regular maths at Excel. How come it's 130? Because if you look, we're looking at this overall angle here, and that lies on a straight line. So if that side's 50, the inside should be 180 minus 50. Okay. So, continuing on with that, I did wonder why no one was posting questions. That was funny. And yeah, so continuing on with what we were saying. Again, we're trying to work towards getting X, so we need a bit more information. And we've got a decent amount of information now. We've got a bit more. Now, we can actually work out the angle at A. Because if you notice, this angle here is 15.35. So this angle here at A, so angle, let's just call it BAC. It's going to be 180 minus the 130 minus 15.35. Because remember, angles in a triangle add up to 180. And I'm definitely going to use a calculator for this because I'm very lazy. Again, if I do get to the matrices question, then I will do it. But yeah. And minus 15.35. And whoops, there. And we get 34.65. Again, I'm just preserving a little bit of the accuracy here. Cool. So far, so good. So again, we've learned, we're getting more and more information. That's the real key thing here. Now, if I look at this overall diagram again, I've learned what this angle is here. I've learned what this angle is here. So what I could do is if I look at just this small triangle here, I know both sides and I know an angle, and I kind of want the other angle. So let me just draw out that little triangle there. You know, I'm going to draw it a bit bigger than it appears on there just to make it a bit easier for everyone to see. So draw. It looks a bit like that. It's not an equilateral triangle. So A, D, and C. Okay? A, D, and C. Sorry, A, D, and C over here. So 3.8, 2.4. Let's add those measurements. Oh, was it 3.8? Yeah. And I've just worked out that A is 34.65. And ideally, I want to work out X. And I'm really close. I'm really, really, really close. So how can I do this? Well, if I have a look, I've almost got enough information for the sine rule. Right? Angle, opposite side, angle. So, as Arkwell just said, cosine rule in it. Because if I have two sides and the angle between them, I can work out this opposing side, which means I can then use the sine rule. So, cosine rule is a squared, which in this case is dc squared, equals ac squared plus ad squared minus 2ac ad cos of dac. Remember, it's just the opposite side squared equals one side squared plus the other side squared minus 2 times the two sides cosine of the angle you have. So let's sub that all in and get our answer. So let's have a look. We have AC squared plus. Okay, I'll do this separately. 1 second. AC is 3.8. Whoops, that's nowhere near what I was meant to write. 3.8 squared plus AD is 2.4 squared minus 2, 3.8, 2.4 cosine 34.65. Like that. Square root the answer. 2.279. Let's call it 2.28. Yeah? To 3SF. Because again, we don't need to be super accurate. 2.28. And then all we need to do now is use the sine rule to work out x. So sine x over 2.4 equals sine 34.65 over 2.28, multiply over, do all that fun stuff, and we get our answer. So again, if you do want to submit questions, you are more than welcome. You just go into the Discord. Again, if you can, try and give me the page number as opposed to... so try and give me the page number or the chapter number in a message so I can get the actual question. I can get a nice screenshot so it's a bit neater. Okay? It's too late now. We're already done. So, but yeah. In future, that would be really nice. So again, post a picture by all means. And if I message you, just let me know what the page number is so then I can quickly find it. But again, we're focusing on Edexcel maths, basically. 36.8 to 3SF. And that is it. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense to whomever posted that question. And yeah, it's quite long. I'd say it's probably a 5 or 6 mark question. Ah, that makes sense. Okay, the next question was really, really interesting. Again, I have no idea where this came from, but this is a really good question, okay? Proofs is a big part of A-level maths, and you really need to, it really tests your reasoning. And no offense to you guys, but students tend to have fairly weak reasoning. Just as a stereotype, you tend to not be great at it. So, this is just a regular proof, okay? It's not proof by contradiction, proof by exhaustion, anything like that. It's just a regular proof. And it says, prove that n squared minus n is an even number for all values of n. Now, whenever I see a quadratic, I like to factorize it. So, let's do that. So, automatically, I would always factorize just because it makes my life easier. I can see exactly what's going on. So, it's saying that this is an even number for all values of n. So, one thing you could do is sub in a couple of values and see what happens. This is something I think teachers don't do enough. So, let's play with it, right? So, n is an integer. So, let's sub in 10. So, what if n was 10? What would I get? Well, then I'd get, my n's like 10 at the moment, but yeah, I would get 10 times 10 minus 1, which is 90. Is that even? Yeah. Okay. So what about n equals 4? Okay, well I have 4 times 4 minus 1, that's 12. That's also even. Now this isn't part of your proof. This is not part of your proof right here. This is for you, not for your actual proof. Now, we need to think about why. Why does this work? Well, if we have a look at the values in the brackets, let me work them out for you. What do you notice? If n is an even number take away 1 will be an odd number. If n is an odd number take away 1 will also be an even number. So, the only two combinations we have are an even times an odd or an odd times an even. And as ProPlayer and NP have both said in the chat, an odd and an even will always result in an even number. So, how would I write this actually as a proof then? Well, what I would say is something along the lines of, if n is odd, then you have an odd times an even, which is always even. If n is even, then you have an even times an odd, which is also always even. And that's how I'd write it. Okay? So we have to write. But again, this is actually really interesting because they put it in the textbook. But fun fact, this was actually one of the worst answered A-level maths questions ever. It's in the top 10 hardest maths questions. But look at it. Not much, is it? But it was genuinely in top 10 hardest maths questions because it was worked out so poorly. So that's why, plug in some numbers, have a go, and then think about why it works. So shove in a bunch of different numbers, big numbers, small numbers, even, odd numbers, and see what happens. And see if you can notice a pattern. It's all pattern recognition. Maths is just pattern recognition. But yeah, one of the hardest questions apparently. So, let's go on to the next one. We have a bit more time. Okay. This is where things get a bit more interesting. Interpolation tends to be pretty awful, in my opinion, for a lot of students, as well as the variance and standard deviation. If you notice, it says use your calculator to check. So, the reason for this is obviously on the calculator, there are methods to work out the whole... This is A-level stats, believe it or not. Year 12 stats is fairly similar to GCSE, but a lot of people just use statistics on their calculator. It's not accepted, okay? You have to use the formulas. If you're not sure what it is, well, so standard deviation, which is normally given by the letter sigma, is just the square root of, God, that's horrible, the sum of fx squared over the sum of f squared. Take away the sum of fx squared over sum of f squared. That's all you need to do. And once you sub in those values, you should be able to get the correct answer. They're really nice because they give you fx squared and fx. So you actually have quite a nice setup there. Because they do it all for you. Okay? So, hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, someone just messaged on the Discord. Let me know if that's okay. Okay, yeah, I'll solve that issue, that's fine. Okay. Back to YouTube. Is this the formula you need to know and learn, or is it given? It is given in your formula sheet. Now, to work out the variance, it's literally just sigma squared. It's just the standard deviation squared. I will point out they don't always give you these values, but they usually do. If they don't, remember what you have to do. You have to take the midpoint of each class and multiply it by f. For this one, add them all up. For the sum of fx squared, you take the midpoint squared and times it by f, add them all up. It's not f squared, and it's not the sum of fx all squared. It's the midpoint squared times f. So just keep that in mind. That's really, really important. I'm going to check if the... Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I fixed the... Alright, I see a few people posting more stuff. Okay, that's good. Again, I'm reacting to the ones that I've done or that I'm doing. But yeah. I think we'll be able to get through a few more, actually. This looks pretty good. So, next one I want to go through, and I want to do this pretty quickly, is the tangents to the circle questions, because the circle questions always come up every year in your year 12 exam. Every year. Okay? Every single year, guaranteed. And they're normally worth around 10 to 12 marks in total. Okay? So this will come up, guaranteed. And I'm not saying this exact question will come up, but something to do with a circle. So they may ask for things like find the equation of the circle given two chords, find the area of a triangle inside a circle, something along those lines. But all of that comes from this skill here, finding the equation of the tangents to the following circles. So let me show you how you do it. What you need to do is, yeah, fair enough. All you need to do, and you have to do this, is you have to draw a diagram, okay? Students tend to not want to draw diagrams. It's really dumb not to. Draw a diagram, okay? Because some of these, all of these questions, if you go through the Year 12 past papers, have a look at the circle questions. You can't do them without a diagram. I can't do them without a diagram. They're 10, 12 marks. You need a diagram. So, part A, I would quickly write down what the center is. Remember, the center is the opposite of the coordinates, right? So it's -1, it becomes 1, +2 becomes -2, and of course the radius is just the root of 13. Hopefully that's all okay in terms of an equation of a circle. Let's draw this out nice and quickly. So we draw our two axes, and we have 1, -2, so it's going to be somewhere in this bottom kind of quadrant over here. We have a big old circle. Yeah? And I think it's actually slightly higher because it's going to be at the point 3, 1. So at this point here, we have some kind of tangent. Not bad, not great, whatever. And I get asked quite a lot, how do I work out the equation of the tangent? Well, first things first, what do you need to work out the equation of a line? So for an equation of a line, you need two things. You need a gradient, and you need a coordinate. Now we actually have a coordinate already. It tells me at the point 3, 1. So we have that already. All we need to do, and this is the only tricky part, is the gradient. Once I show you this once, you'll be able to do it literally every single time. It's not bad. The trick is the radius will always meet the tangent at 90 degrees. So they are perpendicular to each other, okay? That's the key thing. Now you know that, and when I show you how to do it, you'll be able to do this every single time, guaranteed. What you want to do is you work out the gradient of the radius. I know that seems a bit weird. Find the gradient of the radius, negative reciprocal, you've got your gradient, you've got your coordinate, you can now do equation of a straight line. Nice and easy. So, how do you work out gradient? You do the change in y over the change in x. This little triangle just means change in. It's a delta, it's Greek. So, change in y, so 1 minus -2, the difference in the y values over the difference in the x values, 3 minus 1, gives me 3 over 2. Which means the gradient of the tangent is -2/3. I now have my gradient, I now have my coordinate, I can do it. So it says, give it in the form ax plus by plus c. Okay? So, if I'm looking at that, I want to use this equation of a line. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And remember our coordinate, just so you guys are aware, is 3, 1. So hopefully you've seen this form because it's a very useful form. So that'd be y minus 1 equals -2/3 x minus 3. And now all you're doing is getting in the form ax plus by plus c. So the reason why I like this form is I like to times through by whatever the denominator is. Because remember, if we go back to the question, a, b, and c are integers. There should be no fractions. So we get 3y minus 3 equals -2x minus 3. Expand the brackets. 3y minus 3 equals -2x plus 6. Move everything to the left-hand side. So I'm going to add 2x and take away 6. Add 2x, take away 6. Again, feel free to ask me any questions if you're stuck. And what was first? I think the x was first. Yeah, the x was first. So it's 2x plus 3y minus 9 equals 0. Very stereotypical question. This would be like part A, and then part B and C would be something crazy like find the area of this triangle and all this random stuff, okay? So I'm assuming I don't need to do part B because part B is the same thing. Literally just sub in the new numbers. So sub in the new numbers and you've done part B. Okay? If we have time, I want to go through some hard Suvat stuff because that was requested as well. I think, was that the last question? It was. Okay. So someone requested hard Suvat, and there's a bunch of places you can find hard Suvat. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly whip out the book. If anyone has any book reference to hard Suvat, that'd be good. I didn't actually think we would get this far, to be honest. If not, okay, what I'll do is I'll actually do this question really quickly. So let me just copy it over, copy image. This one was posted in the Discord too. Hopefully this person's in. We have Manon has 2 bias spinners. So this is some statistics. Stats tends to be pretty tricky, although a lot of students find mechanics harder. I prefer mechanics. But anyways, random variable R represents the score when the red spinner is spun. Random variable G is when the green one is spun. So, is on your test and blanked out? It's not easy. So, this is only for A-level maths, yeah. You know what? I should have changed. Alright. I realise it's not in the title. Okay, I changed the title. My bad. I may do a GCSE one later, but anyways. I've done this question. When have I done this question? I did this with someone. Anyways. Oh man, that's gonna drive me crazy now. I've done this question with someone before, but I can't remember who I did it with. I think maybe it was in the 20 years ago. Excuse me. Alright. Oh, it was on the Patreon. It was on the Patreon that I did this, I think. Anyways. That was fun. With this question. Part 1, find the probability that the sum of the two scores is 7. So if I have a look at this, by the way, this is called discrete random variables if you want to look up the chapter. The only way I can get 7 is if I roll a 3 and a 4. Right? Will you do an A-level math A-star guide? I am. I'm actually getting that together. I'm getting together all of the hardest questions for every topic. I'm going to go through each one. So it'd be like hardest integration topics, hardest differentiation questions, hardest logarithm questions. And I'm going through literally back to the beginning of A-levels to find these hard questions. It's taken me a bit of time, but I found some special questions that we can do. Some of them are real head scratchers, okay? But I am doing that, okay? If you can do those questions, you'll get an A-star guaranteed. So, anyways. So the only way I can do it is if R is 3, G is 4. So in other words, all I need to do is write down the two probabilities when it's 3 and 4. Now, keep in mind that if you listen to my wording, it's not 3/4 plus a third. It's 3/4 times a third. Because I want red is 3 and green is 4. So an and means times in maths. So it's going to be 3/4 times 1/3. Do they actually come up with new types of questions every year? Sadly for you, yes, they do. So if you look through the past papers, but to be honest, it's not that different, realistically. But there will be it's like in GCSEs, right? Like question 21 is always something different, something weird. But it's pretty much the same. Okay. But they have to make 10% of the marks unseen, which means different. Okay. Sum of the two scores is less than 4. Well, again, I need to have R is 2 and G is 1. That's the only way I can do it. So once again, 1/4 times 2/3. Which gives me 2/12, which is a 6th. Okay. So, this is where things are going to get a bit tricky. I need to remember how I did this. No, I'm joking. X equals MR plus NG, where M and N are integers. Probability of X is 20 is a 6th. Probability that X is 50 is a 1/4. So, here's what we got to do. And they actually, part A, so the way maths is structured in this new spec, and this is what I really like, is that part A helps part B. Pretty much always. If you notice, these probabilities they've given us are the answers to part A. There's a reason for that. So, let's have a look why. So we need to work out what M and N are, right? Now, if I have a look at this first thing here, probability of x equals 20 is a sixth. That 1/6 must have come from the fact that red was 2 and green was 1. Yeah? Hopefully that makes sense. So again, the probability of x is 20 is a sixth. That probability, if you look, because it's a combination of my two probability distributions before, it must be however I get a sixth. Now, if they didn't give you this as part A, you'd have to just manually guess it, which sucks. So in other words, for this to be 1/6, R must be 2 and G must be 1. So in other words, 2R plus G, so 2 times M, plus 1 times N should give me 20. Because remember, that's what x equals. X equals 20. 20 equals M times R. Well, what's big R? Big R was 2. Yeah? Plus N times G. What was G? 1. Hopefully everyone's okay with that. If you're not, let me know. I'll go through it again. I'm going to write the next one in red because it says a quarter. If you notice, we got a quarter from this one. And we got that when R was 3 and G was 4. Yeah. So, the only way to get that is when R is 3, so that's 3M, plus 4N equals a number. What is that number? 50. By the way, this was one of the worst answered stats questions because people tend to find discrete random variables, which is this topic, very easy. But hopefully you can see it's very tricky. It's the easiest exam board. The most popular is Edexcel, and the hardest is Cambridge International. CIE sucks. Anyways, from here it's a simultaneous equation, so you can do whatever you want to work it out. I'm going to times the first one by 4, so I get 8m plus 4n equals 80. The red one stays exactly the same. Oh, we're about to write 80 again. Subtract those two. We get 5m equals 30. So m is equal to 6. Sub that into the first equation, so all the way back up here. We get 2 times 6 plus n equals 20. 12 plus n equals 20. N equals 8. Those are our two answers. 5 marks, by the way. I mean, the numbers have to be integers. M and N. The numbers have to be integers. So they're not going to be nasty. They can't be, really. So yeah. 5 marks. This whole question is 8 marks. To put this into perspective, by the way, your paper 2 has 60 marks in it. So just so you're aware, you're going to have 2 papers in July. Paper 1 and paper 2. They're both out of 60. So this one question is 8 out of 60. It's more than 10%. Pretty big. Pretty huge. Okay. Let's keep going. Okay. Okay. Some of these are a bit tricky to see. Doesn't have a page number. Alright. No, that's not Nithika, Arkwald. Write y as a simplified function of x. I could do that. I can't read some of these questions, by the way, guys. Okay, this was the next one, and oh, okay, this is a lot bigger. There we are. There we are. I like this one. So we have ABC is an arc of a circle, sorry, with circle, of a circle center O and radius 8. AC is a chord, AOC is 120. Calculate the perimeter of the shaded segment. So if we want to work out the perimeter, what two lengths do we need? We need, let me do it in green, we need this length here, ABC, and we need AC. Well, have a look at this. First of all, this is a triangle. We have two sides and the angle between them. We want the opposite side. That should scream cosine rule. Well done, pro player. Okay, so let's just do it. I'm going to call this A, just to make it easier. So A squared equals 8 squared plus 8 squared minus 2, 8, 8, cos 1, 20. And then I'm just going to write what the answer is there. So, square root. Actually, I'm going to do it separately again. Plus. Again, if you have any questions, do let me know, but I'm trying to get through as many as possible. Cos 120. That does look like 110, actually. Let me just change that really quick. It's a little better. So press equals, and then don't forget to square root. 8 root 3. I'm going to leave it as 8 root 3. So yeah. And now all I need is ABC. Now, funnily enough, they teach you new formulas in A level, but I don't like using formulas. I would prefer to do understanding. If you have a look at this, if we ignore the line AC, this is a fraction of a circle, right? So if I were to continue this round, it would be a big circle. Yeah? So, how do you work out the perimeter of a circle, the circumference? Well, you do 2 pi r. Yeah? To work out the total. Because this is a fraction of this, all you need to do is work out what fraction of the whole circle this little bit is. And what fraction is it? Well, it would be 120 over 360, because remember the full angle should be 360 degrees. So, all you need to do is do 120 over 360 times 2 pi r. So that is a third times 2 pi, and the radius was 8. So do we want to make this a bit easier on ourselves? It's 16 over 3 pi. So I've kept it nice and full. So the perimeter would just be both of those lengths added together. So it's 16 over 3 pi, add 8 root 3. You said the answer is 30.6. I'm going to trust you. 16 plus... Okay. Sounds about right. But don't forget your units. Centimeters, okay? Again, I'm not... Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to do it as well. Plus 16 over 3... Over 3. God, please. Hello? Thank you. There we are. Pi. 30.6, yeah. I do believe you, Ice Cream. I'm sorry. I should never have doubted you. Whew. This is fun. It's keeping me on my toes. Let's keep going. I can do a few more. This one's a pretty good one. Let me just open it, shove it up there for you guys. I'm not gonna lie, once again, the image is kind of bad quality, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, let me write this out one more time. So we have 3 to the power of x over 3 to the power of 4y equals 27 root 3. And we need to write y as a function of x, okay? Just in case any of you couldn't see that. So, when they say y is a function of x, what they want is they want y equals and then some stuff with x, right? Some stuff with x. Let me write that again. So stuff with only x. That's what they mean, okay? It's a very fancy way of saying it. But when they say find y as a simplified function of x, they want y equals some stuff with x. So what I want to do is basically rearrange for y. Now, This is all about indices. If I look at this left-hand side here, we have, I mean, there's two ways to do this. I'm going to multiply up this stuff over here. So I'm left with, and again, there's many ways to do this. It's 27 root 3, 3 to the power 4y. Now, if you notice, the y and the x are in their, they're raised, right? They're indices. So what I want to do is make everything base 3 with an indice. So the first thing I notice is 27 is not 3, but it is 3 cubed. Square root 3, how do I write that as an indice? It's 3 to the power of a half. So let's go. We have 3 to the power of x equals 3 cubed times 3 to the power of a half times 3 to the power of 4y. Now, if you remember, when you multiply bases, you add the powers. So let's quickly do that. 3 to the power of x equals 3 to the power of 3 plus a half is going to be 3.5, which is 7 over 2, plus 4y. Good. Everything is now base 3. I'm nice and happy. Can you see how happy I am? So all I need to do now is, logically, x should equal everything on the right-hand side, all the powers on the right-hand side. The powers should be equal to each other because everything else is the same. So I have x equals 7 over 2 plus 4y. Now I'm just rearranging for y. Subtract 7 over 2, we have x minus 7 over 2 equals 4y. Divide both sides by 4 so we can have, there's a few ways to write this. What would be a good way to write it? We can leave it as x over 4 minus 7 over 8 equals y. Another way that might be a bit nicer is you could have 2x minus 7 over 8. That looks a lot better. So the way I got that is I times this left-hand side by 2, top and bottom, and I combine the fractions. I think this is probably what they're looking for, because that is the most simple version you can write that in. I think I did that in like 1 minute or two. Wow. Any questions, comments, queries on that? Let me just... God, you guys have sent so much stuff. Alright. Some of you have posted questions that I really want to do. Okay, wait, hang on. Okay, I don't know how many people would have done this. Oh, I have to do it. I have to do it. Okay. I don't know how many of you have done differential equations, but I'm too plugged in. I'm too plugged in. I need to do this. So, I love these questions. Not done? You're in for a treat then. I love differentiation. I don't have enough A-level classes to sate my lust for this. Okay. Look at this. 9 marker. This is in year 12. So, 2 of you haven't done it. I'm hoping that's it. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So, modelling is very, 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 very important in A-level maths. It comes up a lot. So in a simple model, the cost of the journey when the lorry is driven at steady speed is this. So V is the speed, C is the cost. Find the value that minimizes the cost of the journey. So if you notice, they say minimum, right? If you ever hear maximum or minimum or maximizes or maximum, all you need to do is differentiate, because what you're working out is basically the turning point. So we want to differentiate and then equate to 0 and find what V is. So let's do that. Well, we can't differentiate this yet, right? So if I write this equation out one more time, well, I mean, this is the first time I'm writing it out, but you get my point. 2V over 11. What was it, plus 60? Yeah. We can't differentiate that yet because, well, unless you guys have read ahead, you can't differentiate things on the bottom. So we need to use indices to just quickly bring this up to the top. And I'm going to write it in a nice way that makes me happy. 2 over 11 times B plus 60. So when you differentiate, remember, you bring the power to the front, you subtract 1 from the power. So dC by dV. Bring the power to the front, that's 1500 times negative 1. So it's minus 1,500. Subtract 1 from the power, minus 2. Now, the power of just the variable is 1. So if I bring 1 to the front, 2 over 11 times 1 is still 2 over 11. And then subtract 1 from the power, that's v to the power of 0, which is 1, so there's no power anymore. If you have a constant, well, think about it. What this is saying is, how much does the cost change per unit v, per unit speed? Well, it's not changing. So that's 0. It goes away. There's no change. Therefore, that is our, well, it's not our answer yet, but it says find the value of v. So what we're going to do is equate this to 0. So I'm going to write this out one more time, but I'm going to change it back to the other form, just because I think it helps a little bit with the comprehension on this. With 0, I'm going to move the left thing over to the right. So we have 2 over 11 equals 1500 over v squared. I'm going to times both sides by v squared to get 2 over 11 v squared. And I've said v squared so many times now, it's losing meaning. I'm going to divide by 2 over 11. So let's think about what that would be. Be 750 times 11. I'm not going to do that in my head because I'm not that confident. So 1,500 divided by 2 over 11 would be 8,250. Then all we do is square root it. Five root 330. Let's take a value. So 90.8, let's call it. Now, here's my question to you. Does it say what unit it is in? Kilometers per hour. So kph. There should have been a plus minus here, right? Because I square rooted, there should be a plus minus. So can anyone see why I just didn't take... I took the positive? It's a speed, right? Speed has no direction. So you don't have a negative. If it's negative, it means it's a velocity, which is a different quantity, okay? If you think about in a car speedometer, it goes from 0 up to 150, whatever it is, but it doesn't go negative. So speed is like it is on a speedometer. It's only positive. Boom. Part 2, therefore work out the minimum cost. Well, this is nice and easy. All you do, and by the way, the structure of these questions is the same. Okay? It's the same. The structure always works like this. When you get a model and they ask you to find the value that minimizes, then they say find the minimum. Then they say prove it's a minimum. Then they say limitation. This is the structure every single year. So when I say this, the minimum cost of the journey, you sub it back in to the original equation. Okay? Back into the original equation. Not into this. Sub it into the original. Okay? I see that mistake all the time, but again, it's the same every year. You differentiate, equate to 0, find the value. Part 2 or part B, sub that value back into the original. Part C, prove that it's a minimum or maximum. Part D, what's the limitation? It's always the same. Always. So, that would be 1500 over 90.8 plus 11 over 2v, yeah? Sorry, 2 over 11v plus 60. And that is going to give us our minimum cost of the journey. And it says prove it, but we're going to show it in a second. I might even use the answer button just to be super accurate, by the way. Why not, right? Plus 2 over 11. Answer. Plus 60. So the minimum cost of this journey is £93 and 3p. So it's to 2 decimal places. That's it. That already is 6 marks. Thank you very much, Arpod. I appreciate that. So, hopefully that makes sense so far. Part B. prove by using this. Look, they give you what you need to do. John needs to shush about his research. Okay. So, are these all A2? No, this is AS, Rhodey. All of this is AS so far. Okay? All of this is AS. So, that's dv squared. We're just differentiating again. So if I look here, bring the power to the front, that becomes positive 3000 v to the minus 3. And then 2 over 11 goes away. So, now what you need to do is basically say, is this going to be positive or negative? Well, if I sub in v equals 90.8, then I can see quite clearly that this is going to be bigger than 0, isn't it? Because it's a positive number times by a positive number. Therefore, it's a minimum. Remember, if it's bigger than 0, it's a minimum, less than 0, it's a maximum, and equal to 0, it's a point of inflection. So, let's have a look. What about the limitation of this journey? There are many limitations that you can think of. And again, many limitations. The one that's quite glaring to me is v is constant. Does that make sense? Imagine if you're driving, imagine your parents are driving you, or you're driving from London to Manchester, or in this case, London to Newcastle. Will you be at the same speed always? Or will you have traffic? Things like that. So v is not actually going to be constant. V has to be constant. Which is a limitation. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh man, my throat's killing me. Okay. Oh, look at that, it's still streaming. Okay. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. I think we'll call it there for now. We did quite a few questions. What websites do you recommend for exam questions other than Maths Genie? Honestly, go to Physics and Maths Tutor and look at old spec questions. Okay? So, PMT. And the reason for this is they have an old spec. And by old spec, I mean C1, C2, C3, and C4. The reason why I say that is the content is the same. Very, very, very little has changed in terms of content. They've just reorganized it. And in my opinion, the questions are harder overall. So yeah, Physics and Maths Tutor, look for old spec questions. Something else that's really good on Physics and Maths Tutor is you can get questions by chapter. So you can get like questions on differentiating or something, which is really, really useful. Okay, I think we're going to call it there. It's been about an hour. Thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Again, continue submitting them. I will get through all of them. Which book am I using? It's the normal like Edexcel Pure one. Let me just put it on screen quickly. I do have, by the way, the link to this is in the Discord. So if you want a PDF version, have a look. There's also a bunch of extra, like, if you go on the link in the Discord, you'll see what I mean. There's textbooks for all exam boards, so that can be useful. But also there's other types of books as well. So there's packs of exam questions and stuff like this. It's up to you, Arcworld. You're going to have a calculator, so you're more than welcome to use a calculator. So if I scroll up, this is the book I'm currently using. Pretty standard. But again, in this folder, and again, this link is in the Discord under resources, there is And it also, there's for every other subject: physics, chemistry, biology, law, economics, etc. Loads of content there, which you can access for free, by the way. It's completely fine. But yeah, there's also books that have like exam papers in them and stuff like that. So it's pretty useful. Yeah. Thank you, Arkad. I appreciate it. You're welcome, Pro Player. Thank you for coming. Again, we'll stop now. But again, submit more questions. We'll keep going, okay? For next week. And hopefully this will pick up a little bit more. You're very welcome, Ice Cream. I hope that was helpful. Thank you, Amy. Have a good evening, everyone. I'm glad you found it useful, okay? You all are very welcome. Again, hope it was useful. Thank you, Pro Player. Appreciate that. And again, special thanks again, Arkworld. Ah, fancy, okay. There's stuff for international A-levels on that link too that I showed. So definitely check it out. You might find something useful for you. By the way, I get nothing from that. It's not paid or anything. You can just click on the link and it's all free stuff. Okay. So yeah, see you later, everyone.